Welcome back to Combat Mission Black Sea. What you're going to be seeing in this series of videos is a meaty engagement between Russian and Ukrainian task forces as they rush to seize an infrastructure hub 20 kilometers west of Kirovograd. I've got a significant force to play with. To start off, I have 2 tank platoons with T-90s and 2 motor rifle platoons in BMP-3s. And a few added units, namely some ATDMs and some snipers. I've also got 3 off-map 82mm mortars on call, and I'm going to be getting another tank platoon, another motor rifle platoon, and a company of engineers as time goes on. According to the briefing, enemy forces are of a similar makeup to mine, so we can expect the same mix of armour and mechanised infantry. Looking at the map that I'll be playing on, we've got quite a lot of room to work with. From left to right here is 2.5 kilometers, from top to bottom is 1.5. I'll be starting on the left where that red strip is. The Ukrainians will be starting on the right. We've got this river in the centre which cuts the map in half with an accompanying urban area. Outside of that little valley down there we've got the high ground left and right. We've got a mixture of woods, open ground and suburban outlying buildings to deal with, so there's quite a variety of terrain to be working with here as well. The objectives are mostly focused on the crossing points over the river. We can see that there's some on the high ground as well and the flanks, and generally speaking the closer objectives to me are lower value objectives than the ones further away, so it's going to pay to push across and be aggressive. And of course there's the standing objective of destroying the enemy, which we'll be aiming to do, especially in this case his tanks. The suggested plan from the briefing is to push infantry out early and take up defensive positions on some of the closer objectives, and then let the enemy come to me. That way my tanks on the high ground with good firing positions can put the hurt on the enemy, and once they're sufficiently worn down, once they've taken enough attrition and I can manoeuvre relatively safely, I can push across to the other objectives and take them off them. This is a pretty sound plan, but I think that playing it like that would mean the game could quickly devolve into a tank sniping exercise, and that the mechanised infantry, my BMP-3s and the motor rifle troops down in the valley in the town are going to have a hard time on their own. Not to mention the fact that it's a very attritional force-on-force style of plan, and I want to avoid that. I'll be pitting my strength against the enemy's strength at range across the valley, which is likely to be just as bad for me as it is for him. My advantage is that I can evaluate the situation and adapt to what's going on. The AI, on the other hand, is limited in its ability to react to circumstances. So what I need to do is throw something at the AI which it isn't expecting and will struggle to react to. And what I think the AI isn't going to be that prepared for is a bit of aggression. It's not stupid aggression, you don't want to be charging across the valley at him, but some controlled, sensible aggression to really put the pressure on. The main strength of the enemy is his tanks, and I can really expect them to be up on the hills. So what I'm thinking of doing is getting some force across the river, up on the flanks or behind them, so I can deal with his armour from an unexpected direction. The first thing to do though is to make contact with the enemy, find out what they're up to and get ourselves sorted so we have a solid base to work from. So to start off with, the basic plan is going to be to spread my tanks out across the high ground so they can dominate the enemy approach into the valley and stop his mechanised infantry getting forward, so that they can't set up in the town where they're going to be much harder to get out of. My own infantry is going into the town, and they're going to take up some defensive positions on the objectives with an eye to covering the river. One of the platoon's vehicles is going to stay in the town so they have some quickly deployable firepower in case they need it. The other platoon is going to drop its infantry off and push up on the right flank. There's a little valley here which is screened off by a wood, and I'm going to see if I can get them up in there. This first phase, where we're making contact with the enemy and getting into position, is going to be all about speed. The person here who's going to get into position first is going to have a tremendous advantage. I'm going to be throwing everything at this. I have some reinforcements coming in 10 minutes from start. They can be my reserve / exploit force when I need them. The thing to remember here is that this first phase is pretty much a rush for position, so that when the enemy pops up we have the advantage. As I get information on the enemy and as the situation develops, I'm going to be fine-tuning and thinking about my next moves. There's no point in planning it in detail now, simply because I don't have any information on the enemy. I realise that what I've said is pretty much exactly the same as the suggested plan that I was wanting to avoid. The big difference here is going to be the tempo. There are 70 minutes on the clock. I don't want to be pussyfooting around with the death of 1,000 cuts for the enemy. I want to pin him in place for the first 10 minutes until my reinforcements show up, and then deliver a decisive blow and knock him out. One way or another, I'd expect this to be over in 30 minutes. So that's my plan, guys. Comment, rate, subscribe, let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys would do here. You have about the same amount of information as I have. Stay tuned, you're going to be seeing what happens next when me and the enemy get stuck in the next video.